also look at the X-ray tube. Okay, electrons flowing here. Okay, then we look at how X-rays are created, photoelectric, and control them, and heat production, and different the different elements or the different parts that make up the X-ray tube, the vacuum, the rotor, all of that. Okay, then we have X-rays, right? And so now we have tissue, and so we're going to take a look and see what happens to tissue. We have talked about attenuation, okay? And what I said about attenuation is that attenuation is the amount of X-rays that is reduced, okay, by photoelectric interaction, by absorption, or by scattered radiation. Remember that? Okay. So one more term that we haven't looked at yet, and that is remnant radiation. R-E-M-N-A-T, remnant. Remnant radiation. Remnant radiation is the amount that actually comes out of the patient. This amount here, that's remnant radiation. So you had attenuation, okay, and then remnant radiation is what? It's what remains. That's why the name. Okay, what remains out of that. Okay, so far so good. So what we're gonna do right now is take a look and see what happens here. Okay, what happens when X-rays are going through? Okay, what's going on inside the patient's tissues? Okay, see how we go, guys. And so that makes sense where we're going? Okay. So let's take a look. All right, so there is a whole series of interactions that can happen here. The two that are the most important to us is one of them is called photoelectric interaction. With photoelectric interaction, you have complete absorbance of the X-ray photon. So all of the energy of the photon will be absorbed by that one atom. Okay, and that type of interaction, once again, is called photoelectric. Okay, so comes in, interacts with the patient, but is totally absorbed. So far, so good. There is another type that is of important to us, and not that the others are not important, but those are the two most important to us. The other one is called is what creates scattered radiation. Okay, and that is called Compton interaction. C-O-M-P-T-O-N, Compton interaction. With Compton interaction, what you have is, and I'm just giving you the generalities, but we'll get to the specific. What happens with Compton, is that it absorbs some of the energy, some of the original energy that came from the X-rays is absorbed. Some of it, but not all of it. The other part goes out and is scattered. Okay, so this is how you create a scattered radiation. Okay, and it can go down into the image receptor. It can go down everywhere. Okay.
That's Compton.
Compton. Okay. So in one with photoelectric, you have total absorbance. The atom absorbs everything. With Compton, it's only a portion of it. Okay. All right. So there is three more interactions that are of interest to us. Okay, so we'll get to that in just a bit. So, are there any questions about the electromagnetic spectrum that I was talking about last time? Yes, no, maybe? No? Okay. Okay, here's the last last image I'll show you with the electromagnetic spectrum. Okay? And a few things to point at you here. Look at, as the energy increases, what you will find is that the wavelength of the photons get larger. So as the energy decreases, look at what happens to the wave. Well, this thing doesn't point anymore. The wavelength is going down, okay? Meaning that the wavelength is increasing, okay? All right? So it's going down in energy. If the frequency, okay, meaning how often you see those waves, the frequency is going up, that means the energy is increasing. And that's what you observe here. So you have, for example, radio waves, infrared, visible light. All of them are below, okay, X-rays and gamma rays. Make sense? Okay. All right, as you can see here, wavelengths are big. Here, the wavelengths are very short, okay, but the frequency, they're right next to each other. Are we good? Okay, good. Your silence means good to me. Okay? So, X-rays can be transmitted without interaction. Okay, that was one thing that I didn't mention here. A lot of times when X-rays go here, they can go through a series of interactions, but at the same time, if they have enough energy, they can just go right through it. Okay? You just have transmission. No energy is deposited in the tissues. It just goes right through it. Okay? Or you can interact, and it could interact either with the entire atom, with the orbital electrons, or with the nucleus of an atom. Okay? Okay, so it can interact with the whole atom, with the electron shell, or with the nucleus itself. Now, in our case, okay, in diagnostic radiography, we are not going to see this. We don't see that. Okay? We just don't have enough energy. Is it possible to have? Possible? Yeah, but in reality, it doesn't happen. Okay? It could happen, and I'll talk about those exceptions. Okay. Okay, so low energy photons will interact with the whole atom. Moderate energy photons will interact with the orbital electrons. And the very high energy photons. I need to get some water. I need something to drink. I'll be right back. I'm just getting to the office. Something that can clear my throat. All right. So what I was saying before, if you look at the previous slide, what I said is, it's this, right? X-rays can be transmitted, or X-rays can interact with the entire atom, the orbital electrons, or with the nucleus. And so what we can add here is what I'm saying in the other slide. The entire atom, they're going to be low energy photons. With the orbital electrons, they're going to be medium range energy photons. Okay?
Can you repeat that again? Medium?
Medium orbital electrons.
Thank you.
And the very high energy photons will interact with the nucleus. Okay? So that's how it goes. So this is what I have here, right? So moderate energy photons interact with the orbital electrons. The high energy will interact with the nucleus here, okay? and the low energy will interact with the whole atom. Okay? So if we look at the structure of the atom, okay, you're going to find that the I think I gave you enough illustrations before, and you can keep on thinking like that if you want, being the nucleus or being the atom as a solar system. It doesn't really is like that, but you can think like that. What you will have in the center, you'll have the core, the mass, and the mass of the atom is mostly contained in the nucleus. So there's what you have, and in the nucleus you have neutrons, protons, and other stuff, neutrinos and stuff like that. All right, and so it is heavy, okay, and so a lot of the mass of an atom really comes from the nucleus. Okay, so you have the nucleus, and then you have orbital electrons, and depending on the atomic number of that atom, you're going to have a number of electrons. You can have something as small as hydrogen. Okay, we'll have one electron. Okay, one electron. All right, and then you have stuff like, I don't know, like tungsten. You have 74 and going in all in different directions. Okay, so and remember, then the nucleus or the atom is mostly empty space, right? I tried to tell you that before. It's mostly empty space. And so electrons that are close to the nucleus, those say in the K shell, or those in the L shell, they are called to be bound. Okay, bound because they are so close to it. Okay, that they are. That's what they're called, bound. They're also called bound not only because they're close to the nucleus, but because the binding energy exerted by the nucleus on them is a lot stronger, and so that's why it's called bound. Electrons farther away are called loose, okay, or free by some people. Loose because they are the binding energy they have is not as strong, and so they are. It is easier to be removed, and that's why the name loose or free. So far, so good. All right, so we have 5 basic interactions between X-rays and matter. Okay, and so we have coherent scattering. Okay, photoelectric absorption or photoelectric interaction, Compton scattering, pair production, and photodisintegration. You can say the ones that I described before, as I open up the lecture, I described these 2. And so these are the ones that we're going to concentrate on. But the others are important as well. And since you're going to be working with X-rays, you need to know them. Okay? Because, you just need to know. People are going to ask you. And you need to know. It's just part of your basic knowledge that you need to know. All right, and so the photon energy will range, now let's go back here. The photon energy coming from the X-ray tube. Remember what I told you when we studied the X-ray tube, that they are not monoenergetic, they're polyenergetic, right? There's different energy levels, and so some of them are going to be low, some are going to be moderate, and some are going to be high, right? Right? Remember that is spectrum, and so some are going to be at one end, and others are going to be at the other end. Even with filtration, even with all of that, some are going to be low, some are going to be high. All right, so let's take a look at it at coherent scatter. Another name that is given to coherent is classical. Classical scatter is really not much of a problem. It is not the scattered radiation that you and I, or it's not the scattered radiation that is really a problem to us in diagnostic radiography, okay? Because take a look, it happens with photons that have energies below 10 keV. And so a very small number of our beam, because of filtration, is going to be on that range, all right? If we didn't have filtration, yeah, it could be a problem, but because we have filtration, it's really not of a problem. It could be a problem in other areas. For example, if you're doing bone densitometry, that might be a problem, but in mammography could be a problem, but in diagnostic radiography, it really is not. Okay, now you have within coherent scattering, you have two types. Okay? All right. One is called Thomson. Okay? And this is when the photon interacts with a single outer shell electron. Okay? And then you have another one that is called Rayleigh. Rayleigh interacts with the whole atom. Okay? So basically what happens, and the most common is Rayleigh, okay, out of the two. What you have is this. Okay. So basically what happens, if you want to look at the screen, what happens is you have an atom, right? You have the atom. And what I'm going to describe for you is Rayleigh. So you can put here Rayleigh, that's what I'm describing. Then I'll describe Thomson. So what you have here is you have a low energy photon coming in, see, large wavelength, okay, and frequency is low. So this is what we have. It comes in and it hits the atom, the entire atom. That's why you see these lines here, they indicate vibration. So the atom, if you look at it, the atom will have, there is energy all around the atom. Okay, there's like an energy field around it. And so when this photon comes in, it doesn't have enough energy to even go into the atom. Are you following me? So what happens, it comes in and boom, it bounces back. It comes in with the same wavelength that it comes in, it goes out. Same energy. There is no loss of energy whatsoever. All there is a change in direction. Okay? So imagine, I don't know, imagine one of those big inflatable plastic balls, right? Okay? And then you hit it with another smaller, I don't know, small marble, for example, and you boom, hit it, and the marble just goes and boom, hits the inflatable ball and just boom, bounces back. It doesn't change anything to the atom. It doesn't change the energy of the little marble. All it did was just bounce it back, okay, in a different direction. So that's the same concept here. That's the same idea here. Is Rayleigh clear for everybody?
But when you're making it vibrate, don't you have to transfer some energy?
No. There's no energy whatsoever. No. It goes in and it goes back out. Okay. Remember, the analogy I was giving you is now you're talking outside of the subatomic particles. These are, you're talking at the atomic level. So at the atomic level, no, that doesn't happen. Now, in the example I was giving you, the analogy, yeah, there is a transfer of energy. Okay? In this case, there is not. Okay? That will be the difference with that analogy. We good? All right, so now let me explain Thomson. With Thomson, what happens, if you want to look at the screen again, what happens is, imagine you have a photon coming in, boom, 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 and what it does, it just happens. It just, remember what I had said before, the atom is a vast universe, it's a vast space, and once in a while you will see an electron come by, okay? It just happens that it's a random event. As the energy is coming in, as the photon comes in, it hits an electron, one of the outer shell electrons. It doesn't have enough energy to go in anymore. It just happens, it hits one of those electrons, and it just bounces back out.
At a lower energy?
Nope.
Same
There is no
energy?
loss of energy. No loss of energy. Yeah. It's the same energy. As the energy comes in, the same energy goes out. There is no transfer of energy. All there is just a change in direction. The difference between Riley and Thomson are, Thomson comes in and interacts with the whole bowl, okay? All right? And Thomson interacts just with an outer shell electron. There is no increase or decrease in energy of the photon, nothing. The atom doesn't gain any energy. No, it doesn't. All it does is just, the photon comes in, boom, and it goes out.
But it
Okay.
doesn't move the electron out of place.
No, no, nothing, no.
And it's gonna hit an outer shell electron?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I have the same question as Kayla. Wouldn't it like give off a little bit of excess heat
Nope.
when it vibrates?
Nothing.
Like that? Nothing?
Nothing. Nothing. When Riley was first discovered, Riley scattering was first discovered, it took years after when they came in and they look at it closely and they say, well, sometimes it will hit an electron, and they prove it mathematically, can be proven that it could hit one of the outer shell electrons. But the end result is the same. That's why a lot of times people probably, I don't know, most X-ray teachers or people that I talk to that teach in X-ray schools, they don't even teach that because there is really no difference. Just, so you guys know, that's why I'm giving it to you, because there is a difference between the two. Okay. Okay. All right. So that's but, the end result will be the same. You have a photon coming in, coming out with the same energy that came in. Okay.
Do they have the same wavelength?
Exactly the same. If they come out with the same energy, they have the same wavelength and same energy and same frequency. Only changes is what?
Direction.
Direction. That's all. That's all. All right. So let's move on to one that is important to us. Okay, and that is called a scatter, or what we call common scatter. And the technical name is coherent scatter. Coherent scatter is the enemy, okay? Is really the enemy of X-ray imaging. If we had, in the ideal world, if this was tissue and these are photons, in the ideal world, what you wanted is some X-rays going through and some X-rays being absorbed. Okay, that will be an ideal world. That will be a perfect image, but it doesn't happen. Okay, and so we have coherent, and with coherent, what happens is, let's imagine this one gets a scatter. Okay, it could scatter in any direction. So I'm just saying, I'm just pointing at you. Don't think that it's a scatter in two directions, just one direction, but it's a scatter in a different direction. It's really the enemy because it's not helping you. And get this in your heads, please. A scatter radiation is not going to help you in imaging anatomy. It's not going to help you enhance the anatomy. All right. What it does, the only thing that it does, it adds density. It exposes more. The image receptor, which is here, gets exposed to more X-rays, but it's not going to help you in creating anatomy, and that's why it's called fog. Okay, imagine driving. I don't know how many of you have driven Highway 1, Daly City, 5 o'clock in the morning. Okay, you can't see or drive anywhere Highway 1. You know, it's difficult. You can't see, and so what it's doing, what the fog is doing to your eyes is just is stopping you from actually being able to see far away. You might be able to see 10 feet, 20 feet, but then it stops. And so fog does the same, except that in the case of a scatter radiation, fog is not white, it's just darkness. So it's adding darkness to the image receptor. If okay? But it is what it does to us, the viewer. Now imagine this image. Now we're gonna put it up. What it's doing is obscuring the anatomy that we have interest in seeing. That make sense? Okay, so with that, so now let's take a look at how it happens. So, atom stabilizes itself by releasing a photon equal in energy to the incident photon, but in a different direction. So, in this case, coherent scattering comes in, photon goes in, and it's able, it has enough energy, it has a moderate energy, and it can go in, okay? It goes in the first layers, the first electron shells, and then it interacts with an inner shell electron. Well, not with an inner, somewhere with an electron. But it is able to go in. Will it interact with an inner shell? Yeah, if it is in a small atom, and it has enough energy, it could interact, okay, with that electron. All right? Okay, so it comes in, but what it's going to do is going to give some of its energy to the electron. The electron gets ejected. Okay, so two things so far. So we have a photon coming in, hitting an electron. The electron is ejected. Okay, so you have another electron. Now, what happened with the energy of that photon? It gave some to the electron. Okay, because the electron now has enough energy to escape that atom. So it goes out, and then it keeps some of it, and it goes out of the atom, but in a different direction. Make sense?
Which
Okay.
one is that one?
Okay. Coherent. I'm sorry. Coherent scatter.
I thought coherent doesn't remove the electron.
Okay. Let's take a look. Okay. This is what's going on. I'm sorry. Oh, wow. Why did I put coherent there? Get it. I'm sorry, guys. Sorry. Compton. Okay. Yeah. I don't know why I brought that up again. Okay. Let's take a look at Compton. This is what I'm describing to you right now. Right here. This is what I'm describing to you. Sorry. So you have you have a photon coming in, and everybody okay? Okay. Sorry.
I'm not okay.
You're not okay. So what you gotta do is add this to coherent. Okay, this is coherent. This at 70 k.
That's Compton.
Coherent. At 70 kVp, only 3% of the X-rays will go through coherent.
So that's radiant Compton.
Yeah, either one of those two. Yeah, either one of those two. Okay.
What's coherent?
I tell you what.
Well done.
Tell you what. I'm gonna do something better for you guys. You read it. I'm gonna do something better for you guys. Hold it for a second. Hold it. You're not gonna be confused anymore. I don't know why this thing came up all the way up here. Okay, sorry.
Is classical scattering Compton or is it?
Give me a second. Give me a second. All right. Give me a second. Okay, that is light disappear. Forget about it. It's not there anymore.
Forget about it.
Okay? There we go. If you look back, it's not there anymore. See? Forget about it. Get rid of it. Throw it away. Put an X on it. You will read it anyway. It's in your book. Yes, tell me.
So it actually says it creates secondary radiation, coherent. We're getting there. Okay,
That will be with, forget about it. Yeah. Now with coherent. Okay, so coherent, take a look. We have two types, right? Thomson and Riley. Okay? Right? Okay. Okay? And there is no ionization. That's important. Remember that. Okay? Now we're going to Compton. The other slide disappear. Magic. Okay? Woo-hoo.
So,
All right.
do we cross that out on our?
Ah, jeez. Forget about it.
Okay.
Forget about it. That's what it means. Disappear. Because it's in your textbook. So you'll find it there. don't need to tell you. All right, Compton, okay, this is of importance to us, okay? And this is what I began to describe. And those of you who are giving me the nasty looks, well, it didn't coincide with that slide that disappeared, right? Because I was describing Compton. Okay? Get rid of it. All right, so Compton again. All right, this is an incident photon, interacts with the outer shell, loosely bound, and ejectons. And if it is in a smaller atom, it could even go in, okay? Could even go in into the closer layers. It might even go in into the K shell. For example, if it is interacting with, I don't know, with oxygen. It's possible, because it's a small, they don't, the atom doesn't exert a lot of binding energy on them. And so it could go in. So it doesn't necessarily have to be with the outer shells. It could be with the closer ones, closer to the nucleus. Okay? This is what happens. So you have medium energy photon. It comes in. Okay, let me do it. So it comes in. Boom, 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 boom. Comes in here, right? Can everybody see it?
No.
No.
There's no
Okay,
marker.
there's no marker. Okay, right here. Here is coming in. Everybody, see this now? See the little fire thing here? Okay, so it's coming in. All right? All right. It hits an electron. Okay? When it hits an electron, okay, what it does, it gives off some of the energy to that electron. The electron gains energy, it sucks that energy, and is able to escape the atom. Boom! Goes out. Okay? Yeah.
Is it only giving off the amount of energy needed to overcome the binding?
It's a random event.
Oh, okay.
But it needs to have, but it's important just to follow what you're saying, it needs to have at least the same energy as the binding energy. Otherwise, if it has less, it's not gonna do anything. It might excite it, but it's not gonna do anything else. So it has to have at least that energy or more. Okay? So, this photon gives energy. Remember, photons are pockets of energy, pure energy, right? So it can give up some of that energy to the electron. The electron gains that energy. Look at here. Look at here. It gains that energy and it escapes. This electron is called a recoil electron. Okay? Escapes here. All right, now what happens with the remaining energy of that photon? Because it doesn't give off all the energy. So it retains some of that energy. So what happens is after it knocks off that electron, then it goes with the remaining energy, it goes in a different direction. So two things that happen. It goes off in a different direction. However, it has less energy than the original energy. Make sense?
So does it would it lose the amount of energy in that shell, or is it just a random amount of energy? Like,
It's a random event. So a couple things. If you think about, this is the incident photon, and this is the path that photon was following. And so when it goes out, you create an angle. It's called the angle of deflection or angle of scattering. Okay, where the photon now goes in, goes out with less energy as the original energy. Okay, there's a few more things. But go ahead.
So after the incident photon hits that electron, what happens to the recoil electron? Where does that go?
Good. This electron can go out. It can be reabsorbed by the medium. Okay, it can just be absorbed by another atom, and that's typically what happens. If it has enough energy, it could go and knock off electrons, just like what happens with characteristic and branch rholum. You can do that with that electron if it has enough energy. Okay, so those are possibilities. And here's the thing, guys. Now I can start talking about dose. Okay, dose, you can write this down in simple terms. radiation dose is the amount of energy that it is imparted to the tissues. That is, imparted means that is given to the tissues. Now, energy can be given in the form of photons, but electrons could do that. Not only that, but electrons create a problem. When you have electrons like that flowing around, okay, they can disrupt, because of the charge they have, they can disrupt a lot of the bonds that we have on our tissues, okay? For example, our tissues, you will find tissues that have covalent bonds, ionic bonds, they can disrupt that. And so that's what creates damage. Photons can do the same, okay? Photons can knock off electrons, and when they knock off electrons, these electrons can start creating damage, okay? And that's what is called dose, because both of them have energy. So you're giving energy to the tissues. Now, think of this atom not being just a random atom. This is an atom that you might have in your eye cells, or in your soft tissue, your bone cells, anywhere. This is what's going on, okay, in the atoms that make up those cells. Are you following me? Okay, good. So far so good with what I had said before, what I explained. Photon coming in, hitting an electron, the electron taking some of that energy, the electron is ejected, takes some of that energy, then that electron will be absorbed by another atom, hopefully is somewhere close, okay? And then you have a photon that is deflected with less energy in a different direction, okay? All right. So, when you do that, now you have an ion pair. And we have looked at that term before in the other class, I think. Ion pair happens because this guy is not an atom anymore, per se. Why is not an atom? Because he has a charge now. If it loses one negative charge, then what is the charge of the atom now? Positive. So it's a positive ion. This one is what? It's a negative ion. So this ejected electron is a negative ion. And the atom is a positive ion. Okay? Okay, a few more things. Oops. The photon will transfer some of its kinetic energy to the recalled electron, or also called Compton electron. And then it will continue in a different direction. I said that before. Now here's another. Wow. Oh, I'm going backwards. Sorry. Okay. So, if we want to take a look at it, okay, what is going on here? If you want to look at it mathematically, you know how much energy the incident photon has, or how much energy the secondary photon has, then this is the formula that we use. So we have incident electron energy, energy of the energy of the incident photon is equal to the energy the energy of the secondary photon, okay? The binding energy, and this is the kinetic energy of the electron. So when you do that, when you algebraically decompose that, if you have some values, then you can come up with all the different energies, okay? All right? Okay, it's very simple, okay? Because you're not gonna lose energy, it's just energy's transfer to other forms, okay? Energy's transfer in this case is transferred to the electron, okay? And so that's the kinetic energy, okay? All right. All right, a few more things. Energy transfer to recalled electron affects the angle and energy of the photon scatter. And therefore, the frequency and wavelength of the scatter will change as well. Okay? So what this is saying is that when the photon gives off that energy to the electron, okay, depending on how much energy the electron takes, you can have the deflection is going to change. That angle of deflection that I talked about before, that will change. A lot of times what you find is they both end up getting some energy. Okay, so it depends on how much energy the electron takes, and then you either have more or less on the secondary photon, on the scattered photon. Okay, the majority, not always, but this is also random events. The majority, write this down because it's not in your textbook. The majority of the scattered photons will go, okay, will go backwards, will go 180 degrees. Okay, but they can go in any direction, but when you do test, you see that a lot of times it goes back in the same direction it came. So if we go back to that example I gave you, is that photon coming this way, boom, it will go back that way. It's common. Okay. The recoil electron travels until it fills a vacancy in another atom. So it's absorbed by another atom. Okay? That could happen. See, for example, if we were able to look at the atomic level, your desks, for example, just imagine, close your eyes and imagine your desk. Electrons right now are being shared between all the atoms on the surface. What you have is just a transfer of electrons going everywhere. That's what we're seeing. Electrons are not staying in one atom. The atom just doesn't keep them there. There's always, because they are attached to each other. You have these bonds, and so they are sharing electrons. And so if we were to look at the surface, you will see electrons going everywhere. Okay? And so when one electron from all of that is freed, it's just a matter of time. It just, boom, you're talking microseconds. Boom, it is absorbed by another atom. Okay? All right. Then scattered photons continue.
I'm sorry, going back to the other slide, when you talk about secondary photon, are you talking the photon, the electron that is emitted?
No, that's a recoil electron. That's not a photon. The secondary photon is the photon that got deflected.
Oh, okay.
The scatter.
The scatter.
The scatter photon.
And that's what I said, secondary or scattered. Okay, scattered photons will continue to interact until absorbed photoelectrically. Okay? So, and we haven't looked at photoelectric interaction yet, but we will. So what happens if we go back to, let me go back to that image here. So here, this guy is gonna go until it's absorbed by another atom. Okay? It will take the spot in another atom. This guy will go and it could actually leave the patient and create fog in our image. A lot of times what you will see too, what will happen is if it doesn't have enough energy, then it will go to another atom, and another atom, and another atom, until it loses all of its energy. And eventually it's totally absorbed by the atom. Okay? So that's what I'm saying here with this slide. Here. Here. Yeah. So this is what I'm saying right here. All right? It's a little bit more. Yes. All right. If you want to. In general, the probability of Compton effect decreases as X-ray energy increases. This is important. I want you guys to begin to take a look at it. In general, the probability of the Compton effect or Compton scatter, okay, decreases as X-ray energy increases. So, let's talk in terms of X-ray techs, right? Not as physicists, but as X-ray techs. When you are increasing your KVP, when you increase your energy, this is what happens. Okay? You will see a decrease in the amount, in the number of Compton interactions. Huh? when you increase the energy, which is what I'm saying here, okay, the probability of Compton decreases. Okay, so that's what I'm telling you. Let's think of as an X-ray tech. You're in front of a panel. When you're going from 80 to 100, there is less Compton interaction. Are we good? Okay, now let me explain something to you. We're gonna end with this, but I want you to pay attention. Don't write it down. We're gonna continue here. Put a semicolon here and put however. I'm waiting for them. Got it? However, okay, you, the X-ray technologist, will see more scatter radiation reaching the image receptor. So let me say it again. However, comma, right? You, parenthesis, the X-ray technologist and radiologist will see more scatter radiation reaching the image receptor. Why? Because I'm telling you here with the first statement I'm saying, you increase your KVP, less of it is going on. Less Compton scattering is happening. However, on your image receptor, you see more. Okay? And this is why many X-ray technologists will tell you, and it's a big mistake, it's a huge mistake. They will tell you this, okay? Who's recording? Let me say it here, so I have witnesses, okay? So people don't come back and say something else. Many X-ray technologists will tell you, which is false, they will tell you, when you increase KVP, you increase the scatter radiation. False. We're decreasing it, but we are seeing more on the image receptor. Okay? So my question to you guys is, why is that?
The scatter has more power.
Exactly. The scatter radiation that you create has more energy, so it's able to reach the image receptor. When the energy is low, you're creating more scatter, but it doesn't have enough energy to reach the image receptor. Good job, guys.
So the patient will have less scatter radiation, but the image receptor will have more. Is it?
Don't think like that.
Okay.
Don't think like that. Just stick to
Got it.
this. Don't think like that because you're gonna get confused. Okay, because now you're bringing in the patient, and there are other factors that add to scatter radiation. So far, we're just dealing with energy. Okay. All right. So that's why you see more scatter radiation, because the photons that are coming in are more powerful, and so even though you're creating less scatter, the scatter that you create is more powerful. Okay. And this is for you guys to take it home. Okay, this weekend. It's important. If you're doing a hand X-ray, a portable hand X-ray, what is the average KVP? 55, 60. Okay? Your lead shield, okay, move away. Pretty safe that scatter radiation is not going to have energy to get you. Be aware when you're doing a chest X-ray, when you're using 100, when you're using 120, 110, 90, because now the scatter radiation is going to be more powerful. Don't be right next to the patient. Okay? All right. That's it. We'll end there.